All right, so today we're going to be talking about the Pitt, which for my money is the most accurate depiction of addiction that I've ever seen in any TV show or movie. And while shows like Dope Sick really capture the total drug induced or alcoholic oblivion that often occurs within addiction, what the Pit really sticks to landing at is the cunning, baffling, inconspicuous nature of addiction that we often see. And before you ask yourself why you're listening to me speak about this or who I am, I've been in recovery from drugs and alcohol for over 4 years. And while that technically means that I'm still somewhat of a baby in terms of recovery, it does make me feel like I can speak on this with a little bit of authority without feeling like too much of an imposter. For those of you who haven't seen The Pit, I highly recommend that you check it out. It is a new show on HBO Max that essentially takes place in an emergency room in a fictional hospital in Pittsburgh, and each episode is 1 hour of that shift. It's highly lauded as being super accurate in terms of its representation of medicine and the healthcare system in the U.S. The writing's fantastic, the acting's incredible, and definitely worth the watch. In my 4+ years of recovery, I've never been, quote unquote, triggered by any depiction of addiction in the media. The hedonism in The Wolf of Wall Street did not, evoke wistful nostalgia of the good times, or the total destruction and leaving Las Vegas didn't bring back those feelings of shame and guilt and resentment that are often intimate with addicts. However, the climax of the addiction arc, or what we've kind of seen so far in the addiction arc of The Pit, really did send me. And before we jump in, I would really love to hear your experiences with addiction, whether it be your own personal struggles or that of a loved one, kind of as they come up throughout this video. And then to that point as well, before we jump in, obligatory spoiler alert. Pretty early on in this series, this plot line starts to develop in which Dr. Santos, who is kind of this newer, arrogant and egotistical resident, starts to notice that there are discrepancies with some of the narcotics that are prescribed in the hospital, chiefly benzodiazepines or benzos. Those discrepancies are seemingly always associated with Dr. Langdon, who is a senior resident at the hospital, and sort of the quasi right-hand man of Dr. Robby, who is the senior attending physician, sort of the head honcho.
He's got Librium from this morning.
That's what I prescribed him. All right, Louie, let's scoot it on over. You want to guess the blood alcohol level?
Why would I want to do that?
I don't know, because it's fun.
You prescribed 20 Librium, there's only 10 left. See you next time.
And what the show does so well is that you start to flip-flop back and forth about whether or not Dr. Langdon is using substances or isn't he. And there are many kind of signs that sway you from one side to the other. There are countless scenes that show Dr. Langdon being clearly a super talented physician. Flip to another scene where we see that he is profusely sweating.
I have noticed that he has a tendency to sweat a lot.
We see Dr. Santos voicing her concerns to another senior resident at the hospital, Dr. Mohan, and having those rebuffed.
Whoa. I insult the shit out of Langdon, but he's a great doctor. I've never seen him impaired.
What do I do?
You've been here for what, 7 hours? Just do your job.
To him showing a perverse empathy and compassion for one of the newer residents, flipping back to him sort of flipping out over a seemingly nothing comment.
Such an adrenaline junkie.
What'd you call me?
Or him sort of having a visceral reaction when Dr. Robby is discussing addiction with one of their patients.
Addiction services on the case, too. He's gonna need a daily patch of nicotine gum.
And this back and forth really perfectly captures the experience that loved ones of addicts often feel, where you sort of feel that something isn't quite right on a primal level. Your heart and your gut are kind of telling you one thing, but your brain is trying to tell you another because you want to believe that person. We as the viewers really get that experience until it eventually comes to a head when Dr. Santos raises her concerns to Dr. Robby, who ultimately, confronts Dr. Langdon.
I heard there's been some inconsistencies with meds intended for your patients.
What?
Frank, have you been helping yourself to benzos from the ER?
Yeah, I've been stealing blood, too.
I asked you a question.
Wait, are you serious? What are you doing? Really? Santos. Whatever the hell she told you is bullshit.
I didn't mention Santos.
You didn't have to. I told you, she is trouble.
Have you ever taken a patient's medication?
This is insane.
This scene is brilliant, and it is so accurate in terms of what a confrontation with an addict looks like. What it really does is it shows what happens when the secret of an addict, the biggest secret of all, starts to unravel. And what we see is the sort of survival mode that they get launched into to protect that secret at all costs. It becomes second nature to do whatever it takes to make sure that you can keep the lie going. And what does that typically look like? It looks like gaslighting. It looks like deception. It looks like manipulation. It looks like lying. All these things that really start to feel like a sixth sense. Patrick Ball, who plays Dr. Langdon, is incredible in this, as is Noah Weil, who plays Dr. Robby. And I have to think that, both of those guys have some experience with addiction, whether it be their own or someone that they know. Yeah, watching this scene, I'm smiling because I'm uncomfortable, because I feel like I'm watching myself. And while I can only speak for myself, when I was confronted about whether or not I was using or drinking, and I was, this would be my reaction to a T, exactly how Dr. Langdon is reacting. So appalled, so outraged, how dare you, immediately launching into gaslighting, deception, manipulation, anything to protect that secret at all costs. And it becomes so second nature and so easy to do that. Despite Dr. Langdon knowing full well that any suspicions around this, like, Dr. Robby has to do his due diligence, versus when I was confronted, and still occasionally do to this day, though not as often, was confronted about whether or not I was using or drinking, and I wasn't. My answer was just a calm no, typically followed by some inquiry with empathy to kind of help understand what I've done to sound those alarm bells, to raise those red flags, to hopefully provide some reassurance. And it doesn't feel great when that does come up, or it has not felt good. It does invoke some defensiveness in terms of like my character, but I have lost that privilege to defend that in perpetuity because of what I've put people through. Once it becomes apparent to Langdon that his attempts to bullshit his way out of this are not working, he opens up his locker to reveal that he has in fact been taking benzos from patients.
This is completely fucking
I
insane.
need you to open your locker.
Yeah, right.
Open your locker.
You're gonna regret.
Open your fucking locker, or I will have security smash it open. Go home, Frank.
No, it's not like you think. You remember whenever I helped my parents move, I was too cheap to pay for movers. I hurt my back. I told you that. You teased me about it. Remember? Well, our own Dr. Hagen prescribed me some pain meds and muscle relaxants. I was just weaning myself off. It was just for maintenance. I'm done. Robby, come on. You know me, Robby. You know me, man. I'm sorry. I fucked up. I was trying to...
What, steal pills?
No, it's not like you don't understand.
I don't fucking understand.
It's not like you think. I'm not high.
And this is really where we see Langdon's survival mode start to ramp up, and he starts to engage in what I call the George Costanza approach of addicts, which is it's not a lie if you believe it. Within a split second, he goes from vehemently denying that he is a drug addict to justification for taking those drugs to basically wean off another, medication that he was prescribed for a legitimate purpose, ostensibly. I say ostensibly because there might be like some truth to the fact that he did become dependent on another medication. That being said, if that is the case, the way to go about it is to not administer your own detox, let alone from the medications that you are prescribing to patients. And we really start to see, Langdon panic here. And, in addition to the effects that being chronically high can have on your emotions and your reasoning, he's completely blinded to the fact of, or the precarious, situation that he finds himself in. And he really feels like his life is now over. He feels like he's going to lose his medical license. He is going to lose his career. He's then going to lose his family. He's then going to lose his everything. When in reality, he's that's not going to happen. He's believe it or not, addiction is actually quite rampant in, healthcare. And, there will certainly be like repercussions for this, no doubt. But he will practice medicine again, likely. Like he'll probably face suspension until he gets the treatment that he desperately needs. But I think what's important here is that in this scene, like he feels like everything he's worked for his entire life, it's now over. And I've been there. Brings us to the moments of this scene that really sent me, in which Langdon and Robbie have this exchange in Langdon's kind of last moments of desperation here.
You've seen what I do, Robbie. Could a drug addict do what I do?
Apparently.
I just fucking let him. You're done.
Leave now, or I will have Ahmad escort you out.
Robbie, please.
You are done. What?
And this is the writer's room really sticking the landing with this scene. So much so that it's actually a little bit challenging and difficult for me to talk about, because it really puts me back, in those shoes when I was, breaking people's hearts, breaking trust, fucking people over, which I'll get to in a second here. But when he asked the question, would I be able to do this if I was high? The answer is unequivocally yes. Addicts are not dumb people. They are not incompetent. In fact, some of the smartest, most successful, most intelligently, emotionally intelligent people that I know are addicts. And what do addicts do? They function. And their ability to function diminishes with continued use, but they function. And what this does is it really kind of, if you look at, addiction as sort of like a progress bar, you have the first kind of 10% over here, which is, we'll say the fun times where there isn't really any apparent problem. And then the last 10% over here, which is the total kind of destruction and oblivion that we mentioned before. But the majority of addiction really lives in this 80% middle zone. And that's what this is. It's inconspicuous. It's functioning. It's lurking in the shadows. And that's what the Pitt does so well here, is really kind of showing that, yeah, he is able to do complex medical surgeries while being high. But coming back to, what made this scene so, I think challenging to watch at the time, and even still kind of a struggle to talk about, is I think up until this point, my empathy and understanding were kind of lying more with Robbie throughout this situation. Not that it's a competition or that we're picking sides, but just think that, addiction is a disease of friends and family, and coworkers and loved ones. And, oftentimes I feel in my experience, in my opinion, that the loved ones of addicts tend to suffer more than the addicts themselves. Again, not that it's a competition, but I just when it comes to the trauma and the pain and the suffering that's caused by addiction, addicts aren't typically present for those, like literally in the sense that they are a little bit numb to that from whatever they're taking, whereas the loved ones are kind of living that in its totality. But once Robbie kind of hits that emotional boiling point and loses it with Langdon, understandably so, it really put me in Langdon's shoes, but I think it really put me back in my own shoes, where I was, back in the time of breaking, people's hearts and breaking trusts, for the upteenth time, as I often used in secrecy, and just to see that, heartbreak coming from Robbie for his coworker and let's be honest, his friend, the frustration, the anger, the sense of betrayal, it really sent me back to this place that I think a lot of addicts are intimate with, which is this woe is me, victimhood, self-absorbed kind of mind state where I was watching this with my fiance at the time, and kind of, reverted back into, it's not fair and it's not the addict's fault and he shouldn't be giving up on him and he's just kicking him to the curb because everybody thinks that addicts are worthless and we do this to ourselves because we want to. And this kind of place that I hadn't been to in a really, really long time. And thank God I was watching with my fiance at the time, who is in she's in medicine, like she works in healthcare, and has her own experiences with addiction on the other side, with friends and family growing up, and then obviously now me. And shout out to her, as she often does. She kind of had to ground me and kind of help me see the situation for what it is, which is kind of in line with what Langdon was feeling when he feels his world falling apart. And she was she was the one who said his world is not over. He's likely going to face suspension, and obviously right now Robbie doesn't have the emotional or professional bandwidth to deal with this situation, but that time will come, and she was so right with that. But so to land the plane here, just an incredible job done by this show to really give that sense of what it chronically feels like to be around an addict, second guessing yourself, and then ultimately kind of showing what that leads to at its climax. Just really well done by the show, showrunners and creators of the show and actors. Patrick Ballman, that guy is fantastic in this, as is Noah Weil. So thank you for watching this video. If you feel so inclined to like, subscribe, save, share, all that fun stuff, it would be a massive help. But I do just appreciate you taking the time to watch the video, and we'll see you in the next one.